Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Jamestown Public School Board to order. It is Monday, November 17th, 2025, at 5:30 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'd like to welcome all those in the audience this evening. We have nothing under, does anyone have conflicts of interest to declare on this agenda? Any conflicts of interest? Jacob?
If we decide to vote on any of the negotiation
Oh,
things,
sure,
just
okay.
to- yeah.
The same conflict, yeah.
Yep, same one as normal.
Okay. Any other conflicts? Okay. If not, moving on, school board norms. Steve, would you be willing to read the school board norms?
The board developed norms are to share and respect opinions and speak with united voice once a decision has been reached, execute all duties of the school board in compliance with North Dakota Century Code, properly prepare for meetings, and commit to assessing board effectiveness and ensure high-quality governance for all stakeholders.
Thank you, Steve. We have nothing under public communications. Moving on to our consent agenda. Is there anything any board member would like removed from the consent agenda? Melissa, or clarification?
I would like to remove item E1, the approval agreement with the Optimized PD Strategic Solutions to provide strategic plan dashboard and board automation services.
Okay. And then where should we put that under? Yeah. Okay, we will, let me see, where are we? Let me see where to move that. Under H, under finance, is that okay if we put that there? Okay. Yeah, we'll put a letter C under number 4 there, under finance. Okay. And then just 1 in the 1A, correct? The number 2 is okay? The minutes?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Anything else? Anyone else would like to remove? Okay. We have moved, under E, under other, we moved number 1 and A. Under H, number 4, finance, to letter C. And so we'll deal with that at that time. Outside of that, is there anything else anyone else would like to remove? All right. If not, is there a motion for the consent agenda except for 1A? Motion by Steve. Second by Jacob. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Moving into our regular meeting, we don't have anything under recognition correspondence. Do student council reports tonight? I don't see that. Okay. Moving on to our board education, we have number 1, education competency, DSIC procedures, or DISC as we call it, procedures to analyze stakeholder engagement. So we have some folks here, but we appreciate them coming, Deb Hansen, Christy Hansen, and Brian Knox. Please come up and introduce yourselves, and I think you have a presentation behind us, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Brian Knox. I'm the principal at Jamestown Middle School. And this is Christy Hansen, who I'm sure you're familiar with. And this is Deb Hansen, who I'm also sure you're familiar with, who are great members of our staff. And we've been asked to present to you the district school improvement process and explain how that whole component works. But anytime you have educators, of course, the educators want to step into the role of education. So Ms. Hansen.
We're going to start. Good evening. How y'all doing this evening? Great. We're going to open with a question. But before we open with the question, I need you to go back to Thursday of last week because our PowerPoint was linked to your board minutes on Friday, and I didn't want you to look at it, but I want you to go back to Thursday like you didn't see the PowerPoint, our presentation. And we're going to do a fist of 5 with this. The question is, what is your understanding of our role of the District School Improvement Committee? What do we do? And the fist of 5 will be, if it's 5, that means you have total understanding. If Adam would kick you out an agenda, You can go through the agenda, you can find open links, you can, oh, yep, you know what that is? You actually could come into the meeting and run it for Adam. The 3 would be, well, I know what some of the things are on this agenda. I think I have an idea. You might be familiar with a few. And the 0 would be, the fist would be, I really don't know what this is, okay? So the question is, what do you think our role is as the District School Improvement Committee? And on the count of 3, I want you to hold up, and I want you to hold it because I'm going to be collecting some evidence. Because with our new focus model of Marzano, evidence is the key. All right, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, hold them up. Of course, you would have a 5. 3. 4. All right, thank you.
Four and a halves are always good, that one. So I appreciate that part of the teaching. So we're going to come back, as we always would as educators, and make sure we do a good job and reevaluate this presentation. So let's talk about what is the purpose of the committee. So the District School Improvement Committee really serves 3 main components. The first one is an advisory role. Even though we have individuals who represent all of the buildings come together, they will be looking at their data individually, but then as a whole we'll be looking at that and helping provide information to administrators, to the faculty, and also to you as school board members. We also want to bring together all of our stakeholders. We want to have student input, which I think is very impressive that we are actually utilizing student data. Most districts kind of skip that component, so I'm really impressed as a school district that we are using student data. Obviously, we want to get parent feedback as representing the family members, educators, and also the community. And then finally, we're going to work collaboratively to focus on ways to improve our educational instruction, our student performances, and of course, overall, the school as a whole. Here we show you who are the current members of the District School Improvement. Like I said, every building is represented, including the school board members who attend, and they do share on our monthly meetings. Sometimes they're not able to make it to all of them, not only school board members, but also other members because we have other commitments. But it's regularly attended, and we have people who are there representing very well. The part that's really impressive with this district is I've had the opportunity in my 30-plus year career to work with several districts who go through the school improvement process. And it happens about once every 5 years that they focus on it. And what I'm learning here in Jamestown is this is a continuous school improvement process. It's not something that we're just looking at and waiting 5 years for. It happens annually. We're looking at this input, this data, to make sure that we're continuing to make good decisions. And for myself, very impressed with that component. In this timeline, you can see that early on we collect the data from various stakeholders, and we'll continue throughout the year to be able to collect that data. But once we have it, we start analyzing the data and figuring out what information that we want to focus on, looking for things that we want to synthesize and focus on for improving, and also recognizing the areas that we do very well with. So this is the timeline. You can see that for November, we're currently focusing on analyzing the stakeholder survey, which was presented back in September. That information had been collected. I will tell you, some of us have jumped ahead of this. We've actually started analyzing this a couple weeks ago. We were excited to get that data and figure out what that information had for us. One thing that's really nice is not only do we have one point, we'll have several points that will actually hopefully reinforce those areas. And I will tell you, at the Jamestown Middle School, we've actually noticed that some of our data is actually correlating. What we're hearing from one stakeholder group is also being supported by others. Now, through this process of Cognia, for those who've been in the educational world, this has been around for quite some time. They've just changed the name of it. But the 5-step data analysis is really intense there, and you can either see the visual or the explanation of it, but it's collecting all of this different data from our different stakeholders, dissecting that or analyzing that information, and then deciding what do we want that information to be used for, using the findings and then establishing the evidence of how we're going to then move forward as a district. In the required data analysis, we're looking at student performance data. This could be at the building level, it could be in the classroom level, it could be at the district level, it could be at the state and national level. That data is very important. Again, we want to make sure that we're not just relying on one piece of data to make our decisions, but that we're also being able to find out that there's a correlation between those different data points. We then look at the stakeholder feedback, and again, that's really a key to this component. We're currently doing a survey with our students to help plan for next year in getting their interests. It's not an official feedback, but it's important for us to know what our students want as we make those decisions. And then finally, the learning environment, making sure that we are evaluating our staff, not only as administrators, but we also have other members who are trained to be going through the classroom and looking for those learning environment data points that we're going to utilize. And now we'll pass it on to Ms. Deb Hansen.
Some of the data that we've already collected, eProve climate and culture surveys are basically what we've used. Our parents would have received their survey during our conferences this fall. Students just finished theirs up last week, and then teachers and the rest of our staff have also completed those. Vital Network Instructional Staff Survey is what we also use for our instructional staff. And basically on the 20th here on our meeting on Thursday, we're going to be digging into that data. We're going to synthesize the data, the findings, and provide ideas and brainstorm improvement or implementation plans. We're going to be looking for themes and trends, and this is also the celebration part of it, what's going well. And then we're also going to be looking at areas for growth. The types of the student performance data, we have the organizational data, and these are the results from our initiatives. We have quite a few of them going on in the district. We have introducing academic literacy, we have project-based learning, Steve Dunn writing, features of engaging math instruction, personalized learning. These are all pieces, and when Christy's going to talk to you in a little bit here about the learning environment data, those are all embedded in our observation tool that we use. So this gives us an idea how these initiatives are working. We also have program evaluations. We have our intensive programs might have Trans Math or Read 180. They have unique data points that are already built into their program that we can also use in our data analysis. We have the non-academic performance metrics, which is the last one up there, to where we look at attendance and disciplinary and participation in our extracurricular activities, measurements of skills and behaviors. Our MTSSB committee here at the middle school, they're now involved with SEC, and they are taking some training on the positive behavior intervention supports. So we'll be able to pull data from that. I'm interested to see how our SBL behavior standards that we use for eligibility with the I CAN statements, how we can pull that data in as well. Student academic performance data, we have summative, of course, and then you got your standard proficiency scales that our staff has worked to put together. That's going to be an interesting tool to look at. Our interim assessments, we already have the fall FastBridge for math and ELA. And our state assessment, we'll be digging into that from the spring to compare to. And then, of course, we have our national assessments. Our 8th graders will take NAEP. I look at our high school with our ACT and SAT scores. So those will be some points that we'll be looking at as well.
Good evening. Learning environment analysis. So I'll go through number 1, the Elliott observation data, and we'll talk about what Elliott means, unless any of you already have an idea. Anyone? We have 1,000 acronyms in education. No takers on that one? All right, we'll get back to it. Deb had talked about the student engagement survey that we don't give till January, so we'll look at the results in February. And then we take both those components and look at learning environments back to Elliott. Any idea? No? Yeah, yeah, do you know? Close. Effective learning environment. observation tool. So there's a group from the elementary and a group from the secondary. We have 6 in our team that go around, and we collect data in September, and then we'll do it again in the spring. So what is our job? We're trained to go in and look at the context of 7 different learning environments, such as digital learning, active learning, engagement. And the tool is really nice because it focuses on the learner, not necessarily the teacher. We want to see what the learners are doing in the classroom. And they are rated on a scale of 1 to 4, 4 being very evident, 1, it wasn't observed. So that doesn't mean that they weren't doing a good job, but you might not always see the digital learning, so that would be scored a little bit lower. We have 7 different areas, like I said, and the data helps us refine and continue best practices in our classroom. So we take all of the performance data that Deb talked about, stakeholder feedback, learning environment, which is the Elliott, and then we come together and complete a self-assessment later on. Is that May when we fill that in? April, okay. And that is where you will pick up.
As I stated earlier, Cognia, which was once referred to as Advanced Ed, which was once referred to as Northwest Accreditation, is a program that continues to improve themselves. And under Cognia, there are 4 areas that they're really focusing on. And in this assessment, we'll have 30 standards that we'll evaluate, looking at our culture of our learning, the leadership within that learning, the engagement that takes place, and the growth of learning. So again, taking those 3 areas that we've talked about, all those different analysis, and bringing them together to evaluate where we are at. This is an example of one of the questions that's looking at under the self-assessment. You can see that just like most of our standards where we talk about the 1, 2, 3, 4, they have different languages to help define what the standard is that we're looking for. In most cases, you will see that there will be between a 2 and a 3, just like we would see with standards-based learning, just like we would see with Marzano. We would have that continued growth in areas that would be focused upon for development, and then there'd also be areas where we would identify our strengths. This is an important one. You can see a breakdown of it just to understand the language of what they're looking for. These areas of improvement and achievement are key in helping celebrate the success of the district and also identifying those areas that we want to prioritize. It helps the board, it helps the school, it helps the teams identify the areas that they need to put more time, more energy, more money, more resources to help make those changes to help improve the performance of where we're wanting to go with our next steps. As you can see with all of this focus, our main purpose of this is to revise the strategic plan based upon that data and evidence. And this is where I think Jamestown really stands out. The strategic plan is a living document. It's not something that's created that 5 years ago was put into a booklet and we refer back to, but it's something that we continue to look at year to year and continue to make adjustments to it as we, as a district, evaluate the areas of our success and the areas that we need to improve. So, based upon the presentation you have today, waking with all this wonderful knowledge in your head on an area of fifths to 5, do you feel like you've had an improvement on your score? Now, some of you are going to have a difficulty because we're at a 5 already. So maybe there was something that we presented that was new, but do you feel that you have a better understanding now of the purpose of the district school improvement process? Good job, ladies. We did a good job there. Do you have questions for us? Or really, do you have questions for these folks?
Thank you so much. Any questions from the board at all? Do we have questions? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Moving on in our agenda, we have strategic plan progress monitoring and the dashboard. did you want to comment on that, Dr. Leck? And
I
then
was
we'll do a motion for this to approval.
Sure, I was just going to comment on the dashboard. As has been referenced in the past, there are times in which, we have all of the goals that have a specific progress monitoring or reporting date, but whenever we update them, we'll just update and we'll include it as an update, even if it's not scheduled to be a reporting. So you have that as an example, a couple different places, improve staff leadership, staff involvement in decision-making, even though that's not scheduled for May 18th. There were some updates that we did, so they're just added in the tabs. So I'm just making that reference. Proficiency, of course, is in there for this one as well, but also the communications plan.
Mr. Gaylor, did you have some more information on the presentation there for the
Yep.
dashboard? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Luck, for inviting me to talk a little bit about our NDA Plus results. So at the last board meeting, we gave kind of an overview, and there were some questions that led us to do a little bit deeper dive into resources that could give us more of those performance comparisons relative to this part of the strategic plan, which the goal is to be top quartile by 2030. And so some, surprising findings and some resources that we were able to look through. And it's going to feel a little bit like an eye test as we go through these, just because we're using some scatter plots, and it'll kind of give you maybe at least a little seat of the pants feeling for where we're at and where we're headed with this particular goal. So what is the goal? The goal, as I stated, is to achieve that top quartile proficiency in ELA, math, as well as science. And the time horizon is by 2030. The primary driver is having 85% of students proficient in those areas. Currently, in the current environment, 85% proficient would be the top. And we'll see kind of those ranges of scores as we go through some of the scores that we collected here. So we were able to look back through North Dakota Insights at 23-24 and the data in science, or in math and ELA. Science, we just have this year's scores, and then we're also able to do some comparison with some preliminary data that's not publicly available, but we have access to be able to, and we can provide that data because we're just showing our own school's data on that. We're not showing other schools' data. If you go to North Dakota Insights, you can check out what all of the dots are on the scatter plot, and later this year then those dots will be named, I guess. And it'll make a little more sense as I try to explain a few of these. So what you're looking at here, just to orient you to this style, is we're comparing 2-year student growth to 2-year student growth. So we're getting a linear chart, and we're getting all of the elementary schools in North Dakota, the public elementaries that are reported on North Dakota Insights. So the blue dots on the left represent that continuum of schools in sort of ranked order of where they fall in terms of 2-year student growth. On the right side, you can see our schools in 23-24. So you can see where we're at on that continuum. Then if we go to the next one, we're looking at 24-25. So we talked last time at the meeting about the new NDA Plus assessment. And you can see this is where it's going to be a little like an eye test. Do you like 1 or 2? 1 or 2? I like to do that toggling back and forth. You can do that on your own computer screen too, but it kind of helps you show, gives you a little bit of a seat of the pants feel. Oh, wow, we moved up and to the right, which is higher on that linear continuum. Some of the schools changed positions in terms of growth. So we're just looking at growth in this linear chart. In math, this is 23-24. Along the continuum, you can see where the midpoint is there, some schools on each side of that with growth in math. And then in 24-25, it sort of tightened up and moved a little bit more towards the center. When it comes to ELA in achievement, so now we've switched from growth of students to overall achievement. This would be that proficiency goal. If we're targeting 85% of students being proficient, you can see at the top of the chart over there in achievement is Gusner and Louis and L'Amour on that continuum. And the rest of our schools spread out amongst that continuum, certainly not the lowest in achievement, not the highest in achievement, but you can sort of see based on counting the dots where we're ranked. Each of those dots or data points might have multiple schools represented. So if you were to go to North Dakota Insights and hover over one of those dots, you might see a list of 20 schools under one of those particular dots. So as you look at achievement then in 24-25, again, we see that trend where the data tightens up. In math, 23-24 achievement, and then 24-25 achievement. So it gives you a sense of where we're headed and then and how we determined are we on track or not for this goal. When it comes to elementary student growth and achievement, this is where we get into a scatter plot. So now we're comparing those two different variables, achievement on the left and growth on the right. And obviously the goal is always to be both high achievement and high growth. But we're seeing where we're stacking up compared to other schools. The left graph, you can see the red dots, but just barely. And then if you pull them out into that continuum, you can kind of see where our schools stack up in terms of their growth and their achievement. So achievement on the vertical and two-year growth on the right, on the bottom axis. So as you look at 24-25 ELA, you can see a noticeable shift in the growth metric for our district, not super noticeable in terms of achievement. And I tried to keep those the same on every one of these that I ran and copied and pasted in there, but I want to check that as we're going through here too. So with math, 23-24, you can see growth and achievement on the scatter plot. We have quite a few schools that are approaching that upper right quadrant where we want to be. And then in 24-25, you can see the achievement drops a little bit. You saw that in the previous achievement slide, but the growth still maintaining kind of in the middle of the pack. When it comes to Jamestown Middle School, we have a lot less schools that are defined as middle schools in the state of North Dakota, and that's because of how schools condense and flow into middle schools and high schools. But this would be any 6th through 8th school that would be comparable in the state. And you can see where we're falling in that top right quadrant when it comes to two-year student growth. Some way up in the top right might be much smaller schools than us. They might have a smaller N. And so in terms of the Class A middle schools, we're definitely towards the top of those similar size types of schools or bigger schools. We're definitely towards the top in terms of two-year growth for ELA. In 24-25, we shifted to the other side of the curve, or of the midpoint, sorry, and that kind of represents the challenge of the new assessment. All of the schools shifted down in middle school and ELA proficiency, but for us, that's not where we want to be. We're not on track with that goal. For math, you can see that we were down and to the left in terms of two-year student growth, and then much improved, but still not right of the midpoint when it comes to two-year growth. Achievement in ELA, I had to use my graphic arts skills because we were in one of those groups of multiple schools and it wasn't highlighting red, but the small red dot there that shows where Jamestown Middle School achievement is in ELA in 23-24, and then you can see where it went to in 2020 or 24-25. Math achievement, and then 24-25 math achievement. So a slight improvement in math achievement, but not as much in math growth. If you put it on the scatter plot, you can see that we're solidly in that upper right quadrant where we want to be in terms of growth and achievement, but there are some schools that have higher growth or higher achievement than us. And when it comes to your growth and achievement in ELA, you can see we're higher in achievement than the midpoint, but we're not where we want to be in terms of two-year growth. 23-24, two-year growth and achievement for math, and 24-25, two-year growth and achievement in math. So again, improvements in growth, still not breaking the midpoint in achievement with math. Jamestown High School, we are only able to get the achievement variable. They take the test at 10th grade, and so we don't have a two-year growth projection from the state, but you can see that our ELA achievement, putting us third highest in the state in 23-24, and remaining in the top of schools in 24-25 with ELA as well. So these results are indicative of the entire system and working up into 10th grade, and very happy with those results. When you look at, if you go to North Dakota Insights and you hover over some of the other schools, this does put us above any other same size or larger school districts in the state with ELA achievement. Math achievement for JHS in 23-24, you can see us there in the top right, about the 10th cluster of schools, I guess, from the top achievement, and then moving up closer to that 4th cluster of schools. And again, when you look at schools of comparable size or larger, we're close to the top of that list. So with that, I guess I'd stand for questions, and this was, I feel like we're getting closer to the mark of being able to effectively communicate the board's aspiration to be, really the #1 school in the state. And in a lot of ways, we're approaching that, or we're on track for that, and we know where we need to grow. So I was able to kind of condense that down into the last slide to just show by school, where have we either already met that goal of being top quartile, or where are we on track, and where have we not met that yet? And so looking at, the NDA Plus data that we did last time and breaking it down into those bands, our educators will be looking at that and saying, are our priority standards in the right spot? Do we have the right sets of data to make a difference on that? I think NDA Plus data is important. It's one piece of how we educate kids. And, so I feel like we've got some good results. We're on track in a lot of areas. There's some that we've identified that we know that we haven't met yet, and we need to do some work there. But overall, I'm really satisfied with the analysis, and it does give us a little bit of a cause to celebrate as a school district as well.
Any questions from the board on the report? Owen.
Interesting data. I'm thinking about that Cognia Venn diagram or hierarchical thing of taking data and turning it into information and evidence. I'm interested in your thoughts about how, the way that we're measuring these things against all the other schools in this unitless kind of standardized way, does that take away from tracking how we are doing as a district year over year if we're just looking relative to the state and not necessarily looking at the actual achievement of ourselves year after year, I guess?
Yeah, so we are able to get, with the new North Dakota State Assessment, like a scaled score, and those scaled scores are there are groups of educators that get together to set the cut scores for the different levels of proficiency. And I should correct, last time, I think Mr. Roberts asked a question about what levels are available, and I had said that there are 3 levels. There are 3 levels of scoring just for the bands. So let's take writing out of the ELA test, and there's 3 levels within that. There are 4 overall levels of score for the overall assessment. And those cut scores are set by North Dakota educators and that come together in a committee. So for us to be able to look at year-to-year improvement, we want to look at that scaled score and the percentage of students that are proficient. If we're comparing to other districts, they are going to be moving up and down that continuum. I think that the board's goal was to be top quartile, meaning that we're in the top, and I think at some levels we're achieving that and others we're not. Again, I would say North Dakota State Assessment is one piece of data. It's a piece of data that's useful for maybe some overall program decisions, curriculum decisions, less useful in the classroom, less useful even at the school level in terms of informing our practice. But North Dakota does have some new tools that we're employing at some places, the high school and the math department particularly, that do give us that standard level data in the classroom to make a difference for kids. And we believe that that will help translate, just like standards-based learning will help us translate into higher overall scores that can be monitored at the board level. So I think that to answer your question, we can look at the scaled scores and proficiencies year over year to see how we're growing and how we're growing cohorts of students. This goal seems to be driving us to be more aspirational in comparison to other districts. Good or bad, I think it's great to celebrate, but I think we also need to pay attention to at the classroom level, is that's where we're going to make the biggest gains with kids, not necessarily in comparing to other districts.
Good. Okay. Dr. Leck?
I was just going to follow up. You know, one of the things when Mr. Gaylor and I were talking about this presentation too, we really liked this quadrant. You know, I think it's a good way for us to look at it. We can get trapped into looking at achievement and not consider growth. And, you know, this allows us or helps us to do both. And if you look at that upper right-hand quadrant, I call that the Goldilocks quadrant, that gives you both. You know, and that's I think that's a nice, easy visual for us to look at too. You know, are we meeting we may not be, for example, meeting our achievement target, but we're seeing pretty good growth. That's important to me. And we might be seeing high achievement in an area, but not high growth or be very low on growth. Well, that is indicative of some improvement areas too. Really what we're trying to do is be at that Goldilocks, in that Goldilocks quadrant at all levels. But Mr. Gaylor brought out an important point. When you look at the high school, that's really the summative assessment. Unfortunately, we don't see the growth there because we don't assess that. But the growth at that 10th grade level in our minds shows that the system is building well upon itself. And we're getting to that high level of achievement at the high school level, and that is a celebration, I think. But certainly bringing out some very clear indications that there are areas that we need to improve as well. And I appreciate the simplicity of what we're looking at here.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. All right, thank you for sharing the data and the updates that we have.
Thank you.
For the board, is there a motion for strategic plan progress monitoring for strategic goal 4.2, the NDA plus and NDSA performance comparison, and the updated dashboard? Motion by Melissa? Second by Jason. We have a motion, a second, for strategic goal 4.2, strategic plan progress monitoring update and dashboard update. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Superintendent's report, Dr. Leck.
So you have my written report. The secondary design challenge really takes up a lot of the written report. Although, to be honest, I'm going to skim over this because it's going to be part of our board retreat on December 1st as well. What I do really want to bring up is recognition and thanks to Mr. Gaylor. He went through a lot of work in working with our consultant to develop this design challenge. It really provided outstanding ideas to the district, leveraging our staff to look at a large number of topics. And as I've outlined in the report, we used an environmental scan to start, and it listed a bunch of different ideas and topics. Then staff could identify which topics they were most connected to. And then this design challenge allowed them to work on this problem and develop some innovative ideas that could move forward. So part of our board retreat will be at least one, maybe more, but at least one of those design challenge teams coming forward and sharing their engagement in the process and some of their ideas. Really, we're just trying to bring all of the experts in our district together to help us drive some innovation and drive some change. I was a part of it. I know Mr. Rohr, were other board members too, I think, Mr. Rohr? I know you were, but involved in hearing those pitches. And I was extremely engaged with the work that they had done, and I was very, very impressed with those that I got to see. And you can see the different topics that, there were shared. There were some that were middle school specific and some that were high school specific, but a lot of different teams working. And I would hope that as you look through that list, some of those connect with you in terms of, those are areas that we could certainly want to improve upon or grow upon or build upon. And I thought they were, again, really outstanding ideas, and I was appreciative for Mr. Gaylor for organizing this into our secondary teams for taking this experience so seriously and really giving us good feedback. Moving on, the board retreat, December 1st. We're going to be working still as a finance committee later this week. We are going to complete that prioritization, and then my suggestion would be, as I've outlined in the report, we might even want to consider another board retreat later in the spring as we start talking around budget priorities, schedules, things like that. That's going to feed into our facility needs and facilities discussions. So that might be something you want to consider between January, that's probably early, but April at the latest, to consider another retreat to allow us to really dig into a handful of solutions rather than try to do a lot of different topics and skim them over. The purpose of a retreat to really dig into some of these topics. It is negotiation season starting again, so I have included an updated board memo that gives you all of the very prescribed legal responsibilities of recognition of bargaining teams and things of that nature. And so I would just encourage you to be familiar with that board memo so you know all of the different steps, but they'll all be embedded into the agenda. So I have included just a little bit of updates if you have questions on board policy FFK, and that's a board regulation. That comes out specifically related to expulsions in the past. Expulsions have been up to school years. I think there's sometimes a misnomer about expulsions that they last longer than they do, but in the old North Dakota Century Code, it is only to the end of the school year. And so one of the reasons why why expulsion was expanded in the last legislative session, and that was pushed forward by school leaders who recognized this issue, was that the same offense, if it happened in September, if it happened in April, could lead to very different measures of accountability. Because if they were both to the end of the school year, for one person that's 8 months, for one person that's 2. It sends the wrong message, it's confusing, and so this law was expanded to say you could go for a full calendar year, and that could cross over school years. And so this board regulation has to be considerate of that. The other change in this board regulation that's new based on Century Code changes relates to student victims of a sexual offense. Schools are now required to consider expulsion for protection. That does not mean that schools need to. It just means that you have that option to consider expulsion if it's necessary for the protection of a student victim. In the past, that wasn't part of the 4 areas that we could, or the 3 areas that we could expel for, and so that just expanded that law. I included an update on the science curriculum selection process, and that's also my spotlight. I want to thank the curriculum selection team. That is a lot of work. There's a lot of process that goes along with that. There's a lot of investigation and alignment discussion that has to go along that. I believe right now with science, they're looking at 8 different vendors, so they have to consider, how does this align with our science standards? How does that work at the K-5 level? Are there enough supports for teachers? What's the quality of their online environment? What's the quality of their materials? Does it support where we're going as a district in science? So a lot of different work that this group is going through, and I've just outlined that in the report. The snow removal, we're recommending a continuation, and that's coming in your board agenda later. Sherbensky's has had that snow removal agreement for about 5 years, and we're looking at wanting to continue that for 25-26, and then going out to advertise for snow removal in the next school year, looking at, again, another multi-year agreement. I have included a draft communications plan, just looking for feedback on that. That is part of a strategic plan goal that we wanted to complete by January 1st. We're a little bit early, but we want to make sure that we get appropriate levels of feedback for that. So if that is something you would be willing to look at and give some feedback, I would appreciate that, to make sure that we have a robust and relevant communications plan. And I've just included just a little bit of information, the NDSBA Winter Seminar. In the past, we've called that the Negotiation Seminar. I'm happy to say that they're expanding that and looking at more than just negotiations. I've listed the topics there: governance, workforce and HR, superintendent evaluation, budgeting and finance, non-renewal, school election, advocacy, a 4-day school week, a very special topic that they're adding in, and negotiations. So, really a pretty good opportunity. If you haven't, if you're not as familiar with some of those topics, but I would encourage you to at least consider attending that. It's more than just for our 3 negotiators. So a good slate of topics, and I think an improved winter opportunity for school board members. But with that, and just a reaffirmation of the spotlight to our curriculum selection teams and those pilot teachers working on those products, with that, I would stand for questions.
Any questions from the board? Any questions? Okay. If not, thank you, Dr. Leck. Moving on, nothing under old business, under new business, nothing under activities. Under buildings and grounds, the noted approval of snow removal contract with Sherbensky Incorporated for 2025 to 2026 school year. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve. Is there a second? By Owen. We have a motion and a second for approval of the snow removal contract with Sherbensky Inc. for 2025 to 2026 school year. Any discussion? Melissa?
What is the hourly?
Turn your mic on. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
What would an hourly rate be for snow removal?
It depends. It's a great question. About 5 years ago, we I think ranged as high as $70 an hour.
Okay.
And, so I'm getting the thumbs, it's higher.
125 for a skid steer, it was 270 for a regular size payloader, and the gigantic payloader was like 400 an hour.
Okay.
So with this, it really, about 5 years ago, though, we transitioned from an hourly rate to the flat fee, just to kind of, I think if you spread that out over 10 years, you're going to have years in which you paid a little bit less, you're going to have years you paid a little bit more, but it all kind of is going to average out. We looked at the flat rate because it's a better tool for budgeting, and it all evens out in the end. But I don't know what that would be for an hourly rate, because it depends on how much snow you have.
Right.
You know.
I don't know, I just feel like, I remember when we had this, we were just coming off of some really bad snow years, and it seems like the last, knock on wood, 3 years have just, we've lost on this gamble. And I don't know, I have a very difficult time, so I'm looking at this, and we're going to be paying for the month of November. We're already at November 17th, and there's been no snow removal, and we're just paying out $7,750 for nothing. And for this to be also going, you know, six months that I just, and they only remove if there's 2 inches or more. And I don't know, I just have a really difficult time spending. I understand it's a gamble, but I really feel like we have, since this contract began, we have paid more money than what the contract has been,
Yeah.
what we've been getting from it.
Yeah, I will say annually, historically, on an annual basis, the hourly rate has been much more expensive for us. There certainly are years, like I said, in which you would, spend more. Other years that you'd spend less. But in the long term, I would say this has been a good contract for us. It would be in the long term. I do say, as I said in my report, if we bid that out again for the next winter season, we could ask for an hourly rate, we could ask for an annual rate, we could ask for an analysis of both. We could do both of those things, but for now, a continuation of what we have to get us through the winter is what's, is the agreement that's in front of you.
Any other discussion? Okay. All right. So we have a motion, a second for approval of snow removal contract with Sherbenski's Inc. for 2025 to 2026 school year. There being no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Aye. Motion approved. Number 3, nothing under curriculum assessment instruction. Number 4, finance. We have A and B, review of general fund balance, review of monthly financial reports. Any questions for Christy on either of those at this time? Those are there for your information. No other questions? And then we have C, approval of agreement with Optimize Ed Strategic Solutions to provide strategic plan dashboard and board automation services, and number 1, SEEC Innovation Grant Fund. Is there a motion? Motion by Owen? Second by Jason. We have a motion, a second for approval of agreement with Optimize Ed Strategic Solutions to provide strategic plan dashboard and board automation services, and number 1, SEEC Innovation Grant Award. Dr. Luck, would you like to comment on this? And I think there'll be some discussion from the board as well.
Sure. There was, I referenced this in my last superintendent's report. We did receive the SEEC Innovation Grant Award in the amount of $15,000. That would be the same cost as this. This is a turnkey product, or what's described as a turnkey product, meaning there aren't continuing costs to these services. Once we have them, we own them. They are ours to manage, and so there's no continuing cost. It is simply the innovation grant, which is a flow-through. So it's a reimbursed, I should say, when we expend, SEEK will reimburse us by the end of the year.
Is there any discussion on that? Any questions? Melissa, go ahead.
That answers my questions that I had, because I was thinking that the grant covered that, but then I didn't know if after that grant, if we were going to have to continue. So, thank you.
Yep. Any other discussion? Okay. So we have a motion and a second for approval of agreement with Optimize Ed Strategic Solutions to provide strategic plan dashboard and board automation services, and number 1, SEC Innovation Grant Award. There being no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving into operations, A, approval of MOU with James River Medical Center for Disaster Shelter. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve. Second by Melissa. We have motion and a second for approval of MOU with James River Medical Center for Disaster Shelter. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Under personnel, approval of the memorandum of understanding, number 1, Joshua Jones, special education technician. Is there a motion? Yes.
I just talked about that just briefly. What we need action on from the board is the approval of the MOU. The corresponding staff member it would apply to is Joshua Jones. He's a special ed technician. That is not a contracted position, so that's something that flows through central office approval, but I wanted to include the hire form just to connect the MOU. So what I need the approval for is the MOU. It outlines the conditions in which we provide that support for the coursework and how long Mr. Jones would need to work with us to take advantage of the program.
I think we've done that similarly with others in the past, so.
Almost every other special ed tech that we have has gone through the same process.
So we need a motion. Is there a motion for approval of memorandum of understanding? Motion by Melissa. Second by Steve. We have a motion, a second for the approval of the memorandum of understanding for the special ed technician. Jason? Question?
Sorry. Do the conditions within, have they varied at all, or is that pretty consistent? I guess I'm just wondering if we would review this maybe annually and approve it as, or since it's going to flow through the central office and the conditions don't change, do we really need to vote on each one? It's not a big deal,
I'm not sure I understand the question.
well,
The approval of the memorandum of understanding is the contract between the district and the individual into what conditions need to be met to continue employment.
right, okay. And I was just thinking if those are pretty consistent with this position, is there a reason we need to approve it?
It's an agreement.
Okay.
You're expending district funds to
Gotcha.
support the costs
Oh, I
of the
gotcha.
program.
Sorry.
And so that includes the conditions for further. If those conditions aren't met, then we have to consider employment, but also if there's a cost to pay back.
And Jason, I think if it was just a policy, then we just approve it once and then central office would take care of it. Versus this is actually a signed contract, so then it comes through the board process. So that would be the difference.
And it's an individual person. You're making that agreement with each special ed technician. That's why it comes through. I see what you're saying now, that it's not just one general MOU. It's an MOU between the district and an individual.
And it's signed, So we have a motion, a second for the approval of the MOU. Any other discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. B, approval of notice of intent to negotiate. Number 1, Jamestown Administrators, and number 2, Jamestown Education Association. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve the notice of intent to negotiate.
Motion by Jason. Second by Owen. We have a motion, a second for approval of notice of intent to negotiate. Number 1, Jamestown Administrators. Number 2, Jamestown Education Association. Any discussion? Any discussion? Dr. Luck?
I would just draw your attention to the link, and that's specifying specifically that your desire is to modify the negotiated agreement. And that petitions describing that negotiating unit and seeking recognition should be filed with the business manager of the school district in the immediate future.
Any, for the motion and the second, any concerns with the link language? Okay. So we have a motion, a second, for approval of notice of intent to negotiate with the linked language. Number 1, Jamestown Administrators. Number 2, Jamestown Education Association. No discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Policy and procedures, would the board like to go through all three at one time? Okay. Approval of amended policies and regulations. Number 1, first reading of policy BAB, board conflict of interest. Number 2, second reading of policy BBA, school board elections and terms of office. Number 3, amended regulation FFK-BR, suspension and expulsion regulations. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve for 1 through 3. Is there a second? Second by Melissa. We have a motion, a second, for approval of the amended policies and regulations 1 through 3. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Nothing under tuition and nothing under other. And I think we had one extra meeting that was on here. Finance Committee is meeting 5 o'clock on Wednesday in the Central Office Conference Room. And then we have Transition House Thanksgiving Dinner on Thursday, November 20th, 2025 at 11 a.m. in the Transition House. District Improvement Committee meeting on Thursday, November 20th, 2025 at 3:30 p.m. in the Media Center at the high school. School Board retreat on Monday, December 1st, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the District Office Conference Room. I'm just going to let since we won't meet again until then, let the board know that while the rest of the board was all available that night, I do have a conflict later in that evening, so I may need to leave just a little bit early, but that was the date that seemed to work for everyone. So we're going to continue with that date. And we will have some food available like we've done at other retreats, so you can come straight from work and plan on some food. And then we have Health Insurance Committee meeting on Monday, December 8th, 2025 at 3:45 p.m. in the District Office Conference Room. School Board meeting, regular meeting on Monday, December 15th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room in the middle school. Did I miss any meetings? We got them all? Okay. Possible executive session discussion negotiation strategies. Is there a motion? Okay. If not, monthly superintendent evaluations, Section 2, board relations, and Section 5, community relations. Please complete those. There being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.